Hello and welcome to Rain's Kitchen and Garden. My name is Rain. Today I am making delicious home-baked croissants. You start these on day 1 and you finish baking them on day 2. They are a little bit time consuming, but very, very easy to make, and they are so delicious. Let me show you how I make them. Okay, let's make croissants. Now I have here just some water that I've warmed up to about 105 degrees Fahrenheit or 40 degrees Celsius. I'm going to put this water into my large bowl, and I have 3 tablespoons or 45 mils. Okay. I also have some dry active yeast, 2 1/4 teaspoons or 8 grams, that I'm going to sprinkle into the water. Now you want to sprinkle it, don't just dump it in, because if you dump it in, it'll get all clumpy. You want to give your yeast a good chance to get all foamy and proofed. There we go. Now I've already measured out my brown sugar. There's 2 tablespoons here or 26 grams. I'm going to take a pinch and just add a little pinch to my yeast mixture, and I'll save the rest of the brown sugar for the dough. All right, so I'm going to whisk that up. I'm going to let that sit for 10 minutes until it gets nice and foamy. Well, you can see that my yeast is nice and foamy, so it's definitely okay. And I'm going to add some more ingredients. I'm going to add the rest of that brown sugar. Like I said before, I had 2 tablespoons or 26 grams minus a pinch. I have some salt here, 1 teaspoon or 8 grams of salt. I have some melted unsalted butter that I let cool for a little bit. There's 2 tablespoons here or 19 milliliters. And I have a cup of cold milk, 250 mils. I've got my wooden spoon and I'm just going to mix that all up. Now I also have some unbleached all-purpose flour here on the side, okay? I have 2 1/2 cups. That's, I guess it's about 390 grams. And I'm going to add this a 1/2 cup at a time. A 1/2 cup is 68 grams. And I'm going to mix with my wooden spoon until the dough starts to come together in a sticky ball. Now the last time I made this, I needed the full 2 1/2 cups, but you might need more, you might need less. You just want to have a nice sticky ball of dough. So I'm going to add a little bit at a time and mix that up. All right, this is looking like a nice sticky ball of dough. So I'm not going to add any more flour. I used the full 2 1/2 cups. So what I'm going to do now is pour this out onto my floured surface. Let me just make a little room here. Just put a little flour down there. I'm going to get some on my hands. There we go. Just going to scrape whatever's left in the bowl and pull this off of the wooden spoon with floured hands. It's definitely sticky. All right, now I'm going to roll out my dough. I'm just going to put a little bit of flour onto my rolling pin. And I want to roll it out until it's about 1/2 inch thick. But usually what I do is I have my baking pan here This is 13 by 9 inches, okay? It's a small baking pan. And what I usually do is I roll out my dough so that it will fit this pan. I have a piece of parchment paper sitting on top of there. Or what you can do is you can take out a ruler and you can measure as you go, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is just kind of bring the dough together. I'm not kneading it, I'm just really bringing it together, okay? Kind of pushing it down a little bit. And I'm adding a little bit of flour and then turning it over, okay? And a little flour again on top, because I don't want anything to stick. So I'm going to try to roll it into a nice rectangle. And you don't have to put much pressure. This is a very soft dough. Now what we can do right now, it looks about the size of my pan, but I can measure it. So I've got 12, 13 by 9, it's exactly the size of my pan. But what you can do is 1/2 inch, right? Just stick your ruler beside it, and mine is just a little lower than 1/2 inch, but that's absolutely okay. Now what I'm going to do is transfer it onto my pan. I'm just folding it in half. I used brown sugar so you can see a few brown sugar bits, but I personally don't mind that at all, okay? And I'm just going to place this onto my pan. There we go. And you know, you could always make it more into a rectangle if you want, but this dough is by no means ready to cook. So we have a lot of steps for these croissants. All right. I've covered my pan with some cling film and I'm going to set that aside for now. So the next thing I've got here is my cubed unsalted butter, and it's cold. It was in the fridge. I have 1 cup or 300 grams of cold butter here. I've put it in a zip top because I'm going to be rolling it. Try to get it more or less flat. It might take some elbow grease because it might be hard to roll at first, but it'll get easier as it gets squishier. The reason we want it cold is because we don't want it to melt. Rolling it out, it's going to soften it up, and when butter gets soft, it starts to, you know, get warm. So we don't want it to melt in there. Oh yeah, it's definitely taking some elbow grease. Oh my goodness. I'm just pushing the cubes back in because I'm trying to make a mass of butter here. There we go, it's starting to come together. Now you probably won't get one solid piece of butter, but just try to squish it up as much as you can. And this is a large zip top bag. This is actually a little workout. There we go. Let's try to get it a little wider. Now I don't have exact measurements for this, but you could try to make it into, oh boy, 6 inches by 8 inches across approximately. This is 9 inches, and this is about 6 inches. So it's not a perfect rectangle, but we're going to try to get it as flat as possible, because eventually this butter is going to be worked into our dough. Okay, you know what? That's good enough for me. So what I'm going to do is I have my dough here that I put on the side with some cling film on top of it. I'm just going to put my butter on top, and that's going to go into the fridge for 40 minutes. Okay, so it's been 40 minutes. I'm basically going to turn this out onto my floured surface and get rid of that pan. We don't need it anymore. Now what I want to do is I want to roll out my dough. We're going to start the lamination process now. Now the lamination is a process where we're folding and rolling butter into the dough to create layers of butter and dough. And that's going to make the croissants very yummy and flaky and delicious. So the first thing we want to do is roll this out into a rectangle of about 16 by 10 inches. I'll put the equivalent measurements above in the description below as well. Now, I don't know if you can see it, but here on my baking mat, at the edge of my circle here, it's 16 inches. So I know that it has to be this long. And for the width, I want 10 inches, and we're already at 9 inches. So I'm just going to keep my ruler handy here, and I'm just going to roll it out a little bit. It really doesn't need that much rolling. This is, you know, home-baked croissants. This is not factory made croissants. So all of these measurements are very approximate. If you roll out your rectangle 18 inches by 9, trust me, it's not going to kill your croissants. All right? So let's just enjoy baking instead of trying to be perfectionists, and they come out really, really nice. Trust me on that one. I love this recipe so much. So let me move this so you can see it right into the center here. All right, now I'm going to grab my butter, the butter that was in my zip top here. Now I found the easiest way to get this out, first of all, I'm separating it a little bit from the bag, getting butter all over my fingers. You want to separate it though, so it comes out easy. And there are some pieces that broke apart, but that's all right. I'm taking my scissors and I'm going to cut the bag on both sides. There we go. Okay. See, some pieces kind of broke apart. No problem. I'm going to put this all onto my dough, into the center of my dough here. And any pieces that fell off, I'm just going to pull them off and put them onto the dough. Okay, because we want the butter in the center of the dough. Okay, so what we're going to do is start with the long end, and we're going to fold everything up. First I fold it up like this, and then I fold it up like this to sort of make a frame around the butter, squish it a little bit, and then I'm going to fold it in 3. Okay, and then this way as well, as best you can, fold it in 3. It's very thick dough at this point. Okay, so you've got kind of a little square there. What I'm going to do is add a little bit more flour to my work surface so that nothing sticks. I'm turning over my dough, put a little flour on top, and I'm going to roll this out to 12 inches long. That's about this long. And the width is 8. So I'm going to keep my ruler handy just so I can see. Now I'm going to go very gently, but I'm not going to over roll. I'm going to give it some pressure because we don't want the butter to warm up in the dough and start melting. The great thing about laminating the dough and the butter together is that it creates those really delicious layers. Okay, so I've got my 12 inches. And right now I'm at about 7 at the longest here, so I'm going to try to turn that into some kind of a rectangle here. But it's not going to be perfect, and that's absolutely fine, because the end result is going to be delicious. Okay, that's about 12 by 8. So I'm going to do the same thing. Fold it in 3 lengthwise, and then fold it in 3 widthwise. And you can use your hands and your fingers to kind of seal the dough together. Kind of push it together and seal it together. But be careful with the butter. You don't want any of that butter to come outside of the dough at this point, okay? I'm just going to turn that over and make a nice little square. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to wrap this up with my cling film. There we go. I'm going to wrap it pretty tightly. And I'm going to put that in my fridge for 45 minutes. So here is a good tip. We want 4, right? So take a Sharpie. This is the first turn that we're doing right now. We're going to put this in for 45 minutes. The second and third turn are also going to go in for 45 minutes, and the fourth turn is going to go in overnight. All right, well, this is the 4th and final lamination for today. Day 1 is now complete. We're going to put this in the fridge overnight. And we'll continue the process of making our croissants tomorrow. Now, in a pinch, if you wanted to make these the same day, you could always put them in the fridge for the final lamination for up to, well, I'd say 4 to 6 hours. You really want this to sit in the fridge for a while. I've done it. I've started these really, really early in the morning, and I let the 4th lamination sit in the fridge for 6 hours, and then I bake them at night. So there we go. When I wake up tomorrow, I will be making croissants. Well, it's day 2, and we've had our dough in the fridge all night. It expanded quite a bit. Actually, it broke through the plastic at one point. So it's looking good. I'm going to take it out of the plastic. And I just wanted to show you a little trick here. I want to roll out my dough 18 inches by 9 inches. So I took out my kitchen ruler and I measured 9 inches, and I put 2 little pieces of masking tape here. And I did the same thing. This is 18 inches across. 2 little pieces of masking tape. That way it's kind of easy for me to figure out how much I need to roll it out on each side. That's just a little trick for you. And I'm just going to put a little bit of flour down on my surface. Not too much. And I have it here handy just in case. And I'm going to plop down my dough. There we go. And I'm going to start just by pushing it down a little bit. I don't want to push down too much with my hands because I don't want to melt the butter. The more you handle it, the more you could melt the butter. And you might notice that you can see chunks of butter in my dough. Well, that's just because I wasn't able to really flatten it out as much as I wanted to. This is, you know, part of the home baking thing. I don't have a professional, you know, company with professional ovens baking croissants or croissants. So I have to kind of do my best, but these are going to turn out amazing. Despite the fact that there's butter showing everywhere, it's going to be fine. I don't want you to worry about that. I would have loved to go to culinary school at some point in my life, but it wasn't in the cards. So I taught myself how to bake and how to cook by reading books, watching TV shows, and now watching YouTube videos. I love YouTube for that. I used to have on cable TV, there was a show called, what was it called? Take Home Chef. And it was an Australian chef, and he used to go to grocery stores and he would approach, usually it was women, and ask them if he wanted them to take him home to cook a special meal for their husband or someone in their life. And I learned a lot from him too. That was a fun show. I loved the Food Network. Now I'm trying to make this a rectangle. It's kind of hard though, but I'm trying. The dough is cold, but the more you work it, the easier it gets to roll. I'm going to use a little pressure here to try to get this dough to the length that I want it. I'm going to put a little bit of flour on both sides. Okay. And I'm almost there. I'm going to put it to that end there and try to get it all the way out to my other piece of masking tape. Almost there. I think it's important to show you, I'm running out of breath here, you know, the energy that it takes to do this. I could have put this whole scene on fast forward, but I want you to see how much effort it takes to roll this out. There we go. Now it's becoming a bit more workable. So you know what? Whew, need a little break. I've got it to approximately 9 inches by 18. I'm absolutely fine with this. So the next thing I'm going to do is cut it lengthwise in half. And I'm going to cut triangles. Just like this, okay? I know that I can get about 9 per side. I'm not measuring any size in particular. I'm just cutting triangles. And believe it or not, I'm basing this on, do you remember those refrigerated crescent rolls? I forget what company it was. Pillsbury, is that possible? I kind of remember the crescent rolls were about this size. So that's basically how I figured out how to measure them. I'm kind of eyeballing them. Some are smaller, as you can see. The end pieces, because I didn't really get that square at the end. These are smaller. But I'm trying to kind of make them as uniform as possible. Oops, I keep banging into my flour there. So So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Okay, this one's bigger. And I might actually put this one with this one just to make it one, you know. I'm gonna squish all that together so it's a little bigger. So I've got 15 out of this. This usually makes 15 to 18 croissants. Now what I'm gonna do is, let me put a few of these aside. Like I said, I don't want to handle them too much, but I want you to see what I'm doing. All right, I've got my knife and I'm cutting a little slit on the flat side and I'm rolling it up. Okay, and there's my first croissant. And I'm going to do that with all of them. Now, if you have little bits of butter that seem to be popping out, what you can do is just push them back in with your finger, okay? That's what I've been doing. Because some of the butter, like I said, I didn't have the ability to flatten out my butter as much as I really wanted to. So some of the pieces are kind of poking out. Just push them back in. Very easy. Okay, I have these all rolled out. I'm just gonna put them aside right now because I'm gonna put them on my pans. I have my baking pans lined with parchment paper and I'm just gonna put these on the pans and I'm flattening them just a little bit. I want them to be 2 inches apart. And if you want, you can grab your ruler to help you out. I have small little pans here, so I'm trying to fit as many as I can next to each other. This is a big one, so you might have some that are a bit lopsided, but that's perfectly okay. I can fit 6 to my pans. I've got 15, so I'm going to have to line a third pan to fit the last 3. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take that big one off. Since I've only got 3 on my last pan, I'll put the big one on the last pan. Okay, so I'm going to put that big one all by itself there. I've got a tiny little pan here. Perfect for the 3. So I've covered my pans with a little bit of cling film, and I'm going to let these rest in a warm spot for about 90 minutes. Now don't worry, they're not going to rise too much. We just want them to rest before we bake them. I've preheated my oven to 425 degrees Fahrenheit, that's 220 Celsius or gas mark 7. And my croissants are ready to bake. I'm just going to do 1 pan at a time into my oven. I've got a little bit of an egg wash here, that's just 1 egg. And I put a couple of drops of water in there. And I'm just brushing the tops of the croissants with an egg wash. These are going to be so good. They rose a little bit, not too much. These are going to go into the oven for 12 to 15 minutes. It's going to depend on your oven, so keep an eye on them because you want them to be a nice golden brown color. You don't want them to burn. So in the oven they go. My croissants are all baked. Look at how lovely they look. I think they look amazing. I only kept them in the oven for 12 minutes. Now some of them look like you would see a croissant normally, but I wanted to show you a few of the others that kind of exploded. Look at that one. It exploded in the oven, but it's still going to taste good. It just doesn't look like a regular croissant. And for example, this one, it doesn't look like a regular croissant, but it's still going to be really, really delicious. So I'm going to transfer the pans to a wire rack to allow them to cool completely before I try them. Well, my friends, the croissants are cooled. They're completely baked, and they are delicious. This is such a treat. Yes, it took a little bit of time to make them, but it was totally worth it. They're delicious. I already had one. Now, these are best eaten fresh, of course. I have never tried to store them because we just go through the whole batch in 2 or 3 days, and they're just amazing. I'm sure you won't keep them too long. I hope that you enjoyed this video, my friends, and if you did, please like and subscribe, and don't forget to leave me a comment. I love reading your comments, and I do reply to them. Thanks again so much for being here, and I'll see you next time on Rain's Kitchen and Garden. Bye!